Question regarding the MDA, or the Michigan Department of Ag, the cuts that have been made to the department to the point where we don't have enough inspectors to help keep Michigan-grown products from being inspected for sale throughout the country. Wanting to know what your thoughts are on that issue. We will start with Mr. Jeff Mays.
Thank you very much. This has been an issue, obviously, we've been struggling with at the state capitol in terms of how do we fund programs with a shrinking pie of money. That being said, most of the things we spend money on the state, these dollars we can't touch. I'm sorry, we're not going to take dollars from hospitals that we get from the federal government because we're legally obligated to spend it there. Dollars that you as voters voted to commit to the DNR, we can't touch those dollars. You know, we cannot take dollars away that are constitutionally protected to pay for local law enforcement through revenue sharing. We can't touch those dollars and take those away. It's just not legal, it's not constitutional, and the feds, if it was their dollars, would quickly yank those dollars away from us. And quite frankly, we do have half the budget we did in terms of general fund money than we did in 2000. That being said, creativity and any tough time throughout our history was what wins the day. When we amended the state's food law, myself working with Republican Chair Jerry Van Workum, we were creative in allowing the private sector creative ways without increased fees to support their businesses. And that was supported by Farm Bureau, restaurants, and other organizations. Creativity on these issues will win the day.
Next we'll hear from Mr. Mike Green.
Well, unfortunately, as I talked about in my earlier statement, talking about the cuts that had happened, the fact is the smallest budget in the state, the smallest, not even close to any of the others, was cut in half. And I've tried to figure that out for as long as I've been trying to figure out balancing a budget, where you have corrections and DHS that have increased almost 18%. They cut Department of Ag in half. Not only did they cut Department of Ag in half, Jennifer Granholm proposed getting rid of the Ag Commission, which basically runs the whole MDA. And then she proposed to put the whole Ag MDA in with the DEQ. I don't know about you guys, but to me that don't make sense. And fortunately the Republicans in the Senate was able to stop that. I'm just saying we need people down there that looks out for Ag, and I don't think we have many.
Next we'll hear from Mr. Paul Mezzo.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I sent an email 2 years ago to my representative complaining about the amount of money that was being spent at the state level and the disastrous results in this economy. And he merely emailed me back, and quite quickly, I thought, within the next 2 weeks, that he had just got done cutting $50 million out of the farm budget, and he was pretty happy about that. But he didn't want to do any more because they thought they would lose state jobs. And if he wants to see the email, I'll be happy to show it to you. This is what's wrong when you lose representation. And the farmers don't have representation anymore. But the farm budget still is the largest thing going for us in Michigan because it is true wealth. Everybody feeds off of it. Truckers, packaging, wholesalers, retailers. There's 7 or 8 more people behind the farmer making a good living after that, and we have to protect our farm budgets and our farmers.
On to our next question this evening. I guess we'll call it a two-part question. The first part is what do you feel that you could do in Lansing to help bring jobs back to Michigan and the 83rd or the 31st Senate District? And would you also support possibly becoming a right-to-work state? So with that, I'd ask Mr. Paul Muxlow if he'd come forward.
I have a 3-point plan to get Michigan back to work. First, we need to reduce or get rid of the Michigan business tax. We need incentives for small business startup, and we need to stop the startup bureaucracy that takes sometimes months and years to get a permit. And so, for example, I think we could use a 60-day limit on permits turned around. One quick example, an 88-year-old gentleman came in my office about 60 days ago and asked if we could help him get a passport. Anyway, he came from Europe, so he had some stuff to translate, and he did the best he could, and we helped him package it up, and he sent his check, and he sent it in. A letter came back a little while later and said, if you don't get some professional help with your letter, we're going to close the file and forfeit your dollars. And there's a place where we could get some money for agriculture. We need to reduce that kind of bureaucracy.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. John Hoffman.
Well, my program's going to be what you'll hear following me, because I know Eric's going to say the same thing. So I'll get him a chance to let him say I said it. First of all, we don't have to reduce the Michigan business tax at all. We have to eliminate the Michigan business tax. We have a surcharge and we have a flat charge. And then we have a charge on all of your equipment that you have that you pay again year after year after year. That has to go completely. We can replace that with taxes on goods and services as necessary. Maybe we don't have to replace all of that. We don't have to provide incentives for small businessmen. That will be their incentive to get back to work. We can bring businesses into Michigan if we have a tax structure that they can understand and they can live with. So get rid of all of Michigan business tax. We could even go further. We could get to what would be called that the Michigan fair tax people are supporting, and I support that program as well. And that is to eliminate the Michigan income tax. Go to a consumption-based economy rather than an income-based economy, so that no longer would we pay money on our income, but we would pay it only on what we consume. And I'll continue with this later.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Eric Tubbs.
All right, well, John's right. It's pretty hard to answer that question in 1 minute. But, I think that we need to eliminate the MBT. We need to change the regulatory climate in the state. A good example of the regulatory problem, we had a business in Port Sanilac that bought a grocery store. A gentleman bought a grocery store that had a liquor license. He already owned 2 businesses that have liquor licenses. It took 6 months for him to get his liquor license transferred. It cost him $170,000 in revenue during that 6 months. And there's no reason for this. That's a lack of urgency on the part of the Liquor Control Commission. Those are the kinds of things we need to fix there. As far as right to work is concerned, I think that as unpopular as it is with a lot of people, right to work would make a big difference in Michigan. We need to make big changes if we're going to turn this state around, and right to work could be a big part of it. If you look at the performance of the rest of the states that are on right to work, that have right to work laws, which just allow you to choose whether to be in the union or not, they all have better performance.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Justin Faber.
Having started a few small businesses from the ground up, I've learned that during difficult times you have to do what is right, and it's not always with spending more. And I think we need to change the climate, we need to change the attitude in Lansing to one that is pro-business, and that does include with looking at the Michigan business tax. Not only that, was also looking at the personal property tax, one of the last few states to have that. On the right to work state, I think that that is definitely something that we need to look at. Not only that, if you look at the current jail, and you look at when it was way over budget, it was because they budgeted on prevailing wages, and that's what made it way over budget. So it's our tax dollars we're spending, and when you have systems like that in place, it's coming out of everyone's pocket, including my own.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Al Broughton.
We have to make Michigan a place you want to do business. We have to take away the burdens and impediments that are in the way of business people. I have a son-in-law in Rockford, Michigan, who has an industrial coatings business, and he started complaining about the small business tax 2 years ago, so I read in depth on it, how it goes. Then they went in and put a surcharge on the small business tax, which I really don't understand. And then heaven forbid, if they should make some money, they actually get to pay income tax on top of that. Why aren't we user-friendly? We need people to be working. The best thing that could happen in Sanilac County is get people back to work, and that is done by making it user-friendly, working together, and taking some of these restrictions off. Small businessmen work very well independently. That's what it's all about, to be an independent businessman. They can't be weighted down with all the restrictions they have. We have to change that. Thank you.